We are returning tonight to Ethiopia, where alarm bells are ringing. The fragile peace in the Tigray region is in grave danger. We're past the stage of political posturing, done with the semblance of rule of law, finished with power squabbles that characterize the terms of the interim administration. We're now seeing a concrete military action, clashes on multiple fronts, preliminarily on the disputed territory of western and southern Tigray, and credible reports of drone strikes. This is not the start of a full-scale war, not yet, but it is a deliberate, high-risk escalation by wounded and cornered actor, the leadership of the Tigray People Liberation Front. Welcome back. I'm your host, Yamlak. This brings us to a critical and perplexing question. Why? Why would a force that just survived a devastating 2-year war, one that suffered immense human and material loss, was forced to sign a cessation of hostilities agreement, disarmed some of its heavy weapons, and it's known to be internally fractured, chooses a trajectory that risks plunging the region back to conflict? To understand this, we need to examine the dramatic shift in the TPLF position within Ethiopia body politics. For decades, the TPLF was the dominant force in Ethiopia ruling coalition. Former members of the PDRF accuses the TPLF of imposing its will on decision making. Its cadres held key positions in the federal government and the military. But Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed rise, the demise of the PDRF coalition, and the formation of the Prosperity Party marked a systemic shift. The TPLF cadre, once entrenched in the federal government, including positions such as the Speaker of the House of Federation, withdrew from national politics and retreated to the regional politics of Tigray. By November 2020, relationship had deteriorated into open war. Since then, the TPLF powerful Central Committee has endured a devastating war and profound internal divisions. The factions in control today is weaker. Its once iron grip on the region is in doubt. So, the TPLF is not acting from a position of strength, it's acting from a profound sense of existential threat. Its strategy is no longer about restoring TPLF control at the center, as it was in the first war. It is about survival, and about rectifying what it sees as a catastrophic failure of the peace process. The TPLF that emerged from the Pretoria Agreement in 2020 was a shadow of its former self. Understanding this historical arc is essential to grasping its current desperation. For some, within the TPLF, the Pretoria peace deal was unacceptable for 3 reasons. First, it required disbanding the unlawful government structures that party had painstakingly built over decades. Equally unacceptable was the requirement to share power within other political forces in the region. Second, accepting the deal meant admitting the failure of its leadership to achieve any of its war objectives. Chief among those failures are Western and Southern Tigray remained outside of its control. Third, the TPLF does not view these areas as disputed territories. It views them as forcibly illegally held by Amhara forces. At its core, the TPLF foundational identity is that a defenders of Tigray. To accept a territorial diminished Tigray would be a political suicide for its leadership. This brings us to what we might call the referendum trap. The Ethiopian constitution stipulates that such dispute be settled by referendum. But the TPLF has zero confidence that a vote, given the current demographic and political climate, would return these territories to Tigray. Therefore, it cannot allow the process to reach that stage. This is precisely why it obstructs the return of displaced people. to allow it would legitimize the current occupied status quo. And then there is a question of strategic depth. Western Tigray is agriculturally vital. Losing it cripples Tigray's long-term economic viability. So what does the TPLF hope to accomplish with these recent clashes? First, it is remilitarizing the narrative. By initiating a limited clash, it achieves three things at once. Prove potency. It demonstrates that its light infantry forces remain capable, coherent, and fighting force, pushing back against the narrative of total defeat. Force the agenda. Violently signal to the world that the peace is unstable. The goal is to bring the territorial issues to the negotiation table, not the battle box. Taste new alliances. This is key. The Ethiopian National Defense Forces is currently fighting Amhara Fano militia in other regions. The TPLF is using these clashes to probe ENDF to explore whether a new alliance, however acquired, might emerge in this increasingly complex conflict landscape. Could alignment of these interests with actors in the Amhara and Eritrean government yield success? Second, is mobilizing the home front. This is perhaps its most critical domestic move. Facing a war-weary population and internal rivals, the TPLF has adapted this maximalist stance on territory too. It rallies a traumatized population around renewed national defense projects, outflanks territorial rivals who might advocate for accommodation with Addis Ababa, painting them as weak, uses external threat to silence dissent and restore cohesion within its fractured ranks. This brings us to timing. Why now? The TPLF is playing a dangerous game, likely calculating that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed government is vulnerable ahead of June national election. The federal government desperately needs to project stability. By raising the temperature now, the TPLF aims to extract last-minute concession on territory or on the crippling economic blockade from a regime that cannot afford a full-blown pre-election war. It is a desperate, high-stakes gambit. The TPLF believes that slow implementation of a peace deal was leading to the permanent amputation of Tigray and its own political relevance. So it is wielding the threat of renewed war as its last best lever. The risk of miscalculation is catastrophic. Single incident could spiral into a conflict neither side may want, but both are now actively courting.